My cousin punched me after I refused to lend him $10,000. He said, "You owe me." I called the cops on him, and now he's shunned by the whole family. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to call the cops on my own family, but here we are. Honestly, I don't regret it. If I hadn't done it, I don't know where this situation would have ended. But the fallout? Let's just say my family will probably never look the same again. Let me start from the beginning. I live in Olney, Texas, a tiny town where everyone knows everyone's business. My wife, Trina, and I live a pretty quiet life. We're not rich, but we're comfortable. I run my own plumbing business, which took me years to build, and Trina works as a teacher. We've worked hard for what we have. Every penny has been earned, not given. I think that's important to say up front because some people in my family don't get that. The star of this disaster is my cousin, Nestor. He's 3 years younger than me, but he's the kind of guy who still acts like he's in high school, always scheming, always blaming someone else for his failures. He's been a financial drain on our family for as long as I can remember. Every year, it's something new. A great business opportunity he needs help funding. A temporary rough patch he needs help getting through. A can't-miss investment that's only missing my money to take off. And every single time, the people who've helped him have been left high and dry. Years ago, he got $2,000 out of me for a sports memorabilia business he swore was going to blow up. I was young and naive back then, so I gave it to him, thinking, well, he's family, he'll pay me back. That was my first mistake. The business never happened, and when I tried to ask about the money, he acted like I was the jerk for even bringing it up. After that, I promised myself I'd never lend him another dime. Apparently, Nestor didn't get the memo. A few weeks ago, out of nowhere, he showed up at my house. I knew something was up the second I saw his truck. It's always the same routine, big fake smile, overly friendly attitude, acting like we're best buddies. Trina saw him through the window and immediately disappeared into the back of the house. She knows how these visits go. We sat in the living room, and after 5 minutes of awkward small talk, he got to the point. He told me he'd found this life-changing opportunity, a car detailing franchise he could buy into. All he needed was $10,000 to cover the franchise fee. He said it was a sure thing, and showed me some printouts he'd brought, like that was supposed to convince me. I barely even looked at them. I didn't sugarcoat my response. I told him, straight up, Nestor, I'm not giving you $10,000. You've burned me before, and I'm not doing it again. The answer is no. You'd think I'd slapped him in the face. His whole demeanor changed instantly. The fake smile disappeared, and he gave me this look like I'd just insulted him personally. Then he said the words that lit the whole situation on fire. You owe me, Augie. Don't act like you don't. You think I've forgotten all the times I helped you when we were kids? You wouldn't even have this business if it wasn't for me. I just stared at him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nestor has never helped me with anything. Ever. When we were kids, he was the one who constantly stole my stuff and blamed me for things I didn't do. And as adults? Please. If anything, I've bailed him out more times than I can count. The idea that I owed him $10,000 was so absurd I didn't even know how to respond. I finally said, I don't owe you anything, Nestor. Get out of my house. That's when he snapped. He stood up, yelling about how I was a selfish asshole and how I'd forgotten what it means to be family. Then, out of nowhere, he punched me in the face. Let me repeat that, my own cousin punched me in the face because I wouldn't give him $10,000. I was too stunned to react at first. I'm not a small guy, 6 feet 1 inch and pretty solid, but Nestor? He's like 5 feet 7 inches and maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. The punch hurt, but more than anything, it just pissed me off. Trina heard the commotion and came running. When she saw Nestor standing over me, she freaked out. She grabbed her phone and said, I'm calling the cops. Nestor immediately started backpedaling, saying he didn't mean it and that I was overreacting. I told him to get the hell out of my house before I threw him out myself. He left, cussing us out the whole way to his truck. When the cops showed up, I told them exactly what happened. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to press charges. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that if I didn't do something, Nestor would just keep pulling this crap. So I filed a report. Here's where things went nuclear. The next day, the whole family found out. I don't know if it was Nestor or my mom who spilled the beans, but within hours, my phone was blowing up. My mom was crying, saying I shouldn't have involved the police. My Aunt Gloria, Nestor's mom, called me every name in the book. Other relatives were texting me, begging me to drop the charges and keep it in the family. It was a circus. Then my mom decided to call a family meeting. She said we needed to work this out before it tore the family apart. I didn't want to go, but Trina convinced me it was better to face everyone and get it over with. The meeting was a disaster. It was basically a yelling match from start to finish. Nestor played the victim, saying I'd overreacted and that I should have just loaned him the money if I cared about family. Aunt Gloria backed him up, saying I'd ruined his life by calling the cops. I didn't hold back. I told everyone exactly what happened and made it clear that I was done being Nestor's ATM. I said if they wanted to keep enabling him, that was their choice, but I wasn't going to do it anymore. The room went silent after that. Then Gloria started crying, saying I was tearing the family apart. My mom tried to calm things down, but it was pointless. I walked out, and Trina followed me. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, things have only gotten messier. Some family members have cut Nestor off completely, saying they're sick of his crap. Others are furious with me for airing our dirty laundry by calling the cops. And Nestor? From what I hear, he's struggling. Nobody in town wants to do business with him now that they know what happened. This isn't the ending I wanted, but I'm not sure there's any way to fix this. After the family meeting, I thought things might cool down, but I was dead wrong. Nestor doubled down on his victim act, telling anyone who would listen that I'd ruined his life and destroyed his reputation. He even went as far as to post about it on Facebook, writing this long, dramatic post about how I was a traitor to the family and had stabbed him in the back. I would have ignored it, but then he crossed the line. He started dragging Trina into it, saying she was the one poisoning me against him. He even implied that our marriage wouldn't last because I'd chosen money over blood. That was it for me. Trina is the love of my life, and I wasn't about to let this idiot drag her name through the mud. I decided it was time to fight back, not physically, obviously, but in a way that would show him I wasn't someone to mess with. And since Nestor had no problem airing our dirty laundry publicly, I figured I'd give him a taste of his own medicine. First, I wrote a long post on Facebook addressing everything. I kept it factual but didn't hold back. I explained exactly what happened, how Nestor showed up at my house uninvited, demanded $10,000, punched me when I refused, and then played the victim. I included screenshots of his nasty messages to me and Trina, along with the police report number in case anyone doubted me. The post went viral, well, as viral as something can go in a small town like Olney. People started commenting, sharing their own stories about Nestor. Turns out, I wasn't the only one he tried to scam. My cousin Mateo commented that Nestor had borrowed $1,500 from him years ago and never paid it back. Another guy in town said Nestor had once tried to sell him counterfeit car parts. The floodgates opened, and Nestor's reputation went from bad to non-existent in about 48 hours. Next, I decided to take things a step further. I knew Nestor had been doing side jobs under the table, fixing cars, detailing vehicles, stuff like that. What he didn't know was that I'd kept copies of his business flyers that he'd handed out around town. These flyers didn't have any business license numbers on them, which was illegal in our area. I sent the flyers, along with a tip, to the local authorities. It didn't take long for them to investigate and slap Nestor with fines for operating without a license and failing to report income. He tried to argue his way out of it, but it turns out, the government doesn't care much for sob stories. The real cherry on top, though, came from the police report I filed when he punched me. Nestor thought I'd let it slide, but I didn't. When his court date came around, I showed up with Trina and a lawyer. I wasn't there to drop the charges, I was there to make sure he faced the consequences of his actions. The judge didn't go easy on him either. Nestor ended up with a misdemeanor assault charge, community service, and mandatory anger management classes. On top of that, the court ordered him to stay away from me and Trina for a full year. If he violated the restraining order, he'd face jail time. The look on his face when the judge handed down the sentence was priceless. By the time all of this was over, Nestor was completely isolated. Most of the family had turned against him, especially after they saw my Facebook post and realized how many people he'd scammed. Aunt Gloria tried to defend him at first, but even she eventually gave up when he started asking her for money to pay his fines. He lost whatever little credibility he had left in town, too. People stopped hiring him for side jobs, and he ended up having to sell his truck just to make ends meet. The last I heard, he was living in a dingy apartment on the edge of town, trying to sell random junk on Craigslist to scrape by. As for me and Trina, life is better than ever. Without Nestor's drama hanging over our heads, we've been able to focus on ourselves and our future. My business is thriving, and we're even thinking about taking a long overdue vacation to celebrate putting this whole mess behind us. Here's the thing, I know some people might think I went too far, but I disagree. For years, Nestor took advantage of everyone around him, thinking there would never be any consequences. He thought he could bully me into giving him money, and when that didn't work, he tried to smear my name and hurt my family. All I did was hold him accountable for his actions. In the end, Nestor got exactly what he deserved. If that's revenge, so be it. I just call it justice. And that's how my cousin punched me, thought he could get away with it, and ended up losing everything instead. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that family isn't just about blood, it's about respect. And if someone doesn't respect you, they don't deserve a place in your life.